All right, good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, March 13th at 9 a.m. We'll start our work session. Is there anybody that has any comments, public comments, about the meeting? Maybe the concerned citizen?
Andrews.
Anybody here inside the room? Doesn't look like it. Anybody online? Raise your hand, please. Okay, well, thank you so much. Ellie, you're up.
Hey, hi, I'm Ellie Gage. I
And Andy.
chair the Wolf Committee in Crook County. Andy Gallagher is joining me. He's our vice chair. We were hoping to discuss a county carcass disposal program. A little bit of background: in 2023, ODF&W expanded the area of known wolf activity to include a large portion of Crook County. We had 3 confirmed depredation events in Crook County last fall and winter. That's the first time we've experienced that in Crook County. And a depredation event is when livestock are injured or killed in a wolf attack. Removing carcasses and bone piles that are in close proximity to livestock operations is very well studied and well recognized as an important tool in reducing the likelihood of livestock conflict with wolves. And to be most successful, carcass and bone pile removal needs to happen at a landscape scale. So we're requesting that Crook County recognizes the importance of this practice, being carcass and bone pile removal, and in supporting livestock producers by waiving the fees for livestock producers to bring their carcasses and bone piles to the landfill. I believe this will support producers who are already incorporating this practice into their operation, and hopefully will incentivize others to implement carcass and bone pile removal to reduce conflict with wolves. In the future, we're suggesting that Crook County considers moving to a community carcass composting site that could be located at the landfill. I learned that the landfill was 352 tons over their allowed animal carcasses in 2023. And a carcass composting program would alleviate this issue of the landfill being over their allocated amount of animal carcasses and would produce a usable end product. The landfill already has the heavy equipment needed to operate a carcass composting site. And throughout the West, these community scale carcass composting sites have been really successful in supporting carcass removal and therefore reducing conflicts between livestock and wolves.
Just to throw my 2 cents in, I went and actually visited the one in John Day. And
Yeah,
it's
Prairie City.
Prairie City. It's really impressive.
Yeah.
They got quite an operation.
Yeah, so a little more background on that. That started out as a partnership between the Oregon Department of Transportation and the city of Prairie City. The city of Prairie City depends heavily on tourism. Some of that is bicycle tourism. They were recognizing the challenges they had with the number of wildlife that were getting hit on the highway there. So that started as a cleanup program for their vehicle collision wildlife carcasses. And then it's been utilized by livestock producers. ODF&W uses it. It's small. I mean, I think it's like 3 bays, concrete pad with Jersey barriers. It's located on city property at their water treatment plant. Definitely worth checking out. Chris Camarina is the head of public works there in Prairie City, and he's the brains behind the operation. Yeah, he's great. So they actually, they produced a manual kind of like spelling out all the steps of their partnership and the permits and the construction of the site and then the daily operation as well. So I have that available. I think
It's in the packet.
it's in the packet. Okay. For your reference.
What are your thoughts, Jackie?
So this is something that we've been dealing with the whole time I've been at the landfill, so almost 20 years. This topic comes up numerous times. When Alan was here, we looked into animal incineration, composting, several other things. My concern is Prairie City operates on a much smaller scale. Also waiving fees for disposal. I don't know how you track regular homeowner versus someone who owns a ranch. Like, there's no way for me to track that. So potentially I could be giving away $15,000 in free dump fees for livestock.
What is an individual fee if I bring a carcass in?
It's all based off weight. So an in-county weight fees at 60 a ton and an out-of-county is 70 a ton. So on dead animals alone, we had 214 tons of dead animals last year, so it's about 15,000. But there is no way for me to track whether you're just a regular homeowner or,
You're a rancher.
yep. The other part of that is, so I only had a couple hours to really dive into some of this stuff. It's 180 days from what I understand to compost an animal. If you do not start off on the right foot with 3 days of temperatures of 131 degrees or more, essentially that animal could be wasted and we'd be landfilling it anyway. The other part of that is the volume we get. We would have to look at a pretty large area of our landfill to accommodate that. And we would need to pour concrete because it would affect our leachate, which is already an issue with the amount of butcher waste and dead animals that we take. So it's a pretty big operation to take on a composting for those animals. Also, what do you do with the product in the end? From what I'm understanding, you can't sell this to the Joe Schmo homeowner. You can't sell it as regular compost. It can only be land applied to hay fields or agricultural fields. It can't go on a normal food crop that you would consume. Another issue is there's not, from what I've read, there's not really this just last night, I'm not sure that there's enough or any evidence that suggests that that kills off any mad cow disease.
It does not, any
Yes,
like
so-
prion disease.
So I don't know if an animal comes in, if they've had neurological issues, how would I know whether they can go into our composting pile or not?
Yeah,
Honestly, I would, Kevin's here, he's doing our solid waste management plan. I don't know, do you have any history with?
No.
Okay. Alan and I looked more heavily at incineration when he was here. You have to have an air contaminant discharge permit for that, which we do have an application for. I don't know if that would have to be modified in order to do something like that. But plus, the equipment to do that is very expensive and hard to find. We don't have all the equipment to do a composting, so we would also have to do that, purchase some equipment. Water's an issue. We don't have enough water. That's why we couldn't compost yard debris. We can't get it hot enough to kill the pathogens, so that is another issue. We'd have to hire a pretty much full-time staff member in order to just do that. So it's a large undertaking. I mean, if it's something you guys want to look at, we certainly can. It's just, it will take time.
What do you do with an animal right now? I bring an animal in my dump trailer. Where's it go?
It gets buried in our MSW or solid waste line cell.
And are you collecting animals from other, I mean, you're what, 400, so whatever you are, 352 or whatever amount you're over, is that from like Jefferson and Deschutes, or is that,
We take from all counties.
do they bring them here?
Yes.
They don't, like, so Deschutes does not dispose.
Deschutes will take some dead animals. They will not take butcher waste. So we are taking all of Redmond's butcher waste.
Okay, okay.
So
And
you
that-
could also approach Deschutes County stating you guys need to handle your own.
Yeah.
There's no reason they can't.
But basically, it's the butcher waste that puts
The
you
butcher
over,
waste-
it's not the,
The
it's
butcher
not
waste
the
is,
animals.
yes, the butcher waste is where we're really over the limit. That is the issue.
And what happens that you're over the limit? What happens, Jackie? They come and slap you on the hand, or what do? They fine us? What
So we
happens?
were over last year as well.
Okay,
It wasn't as large of an overage. I do need to call our permit holder though, because this is such a large amount that we are out of our permit. It's essentially a violation of our permit.
can you increase that? Can you say,
Yes,
realistically, we need to increase whatever? Is that possible, or how does that work?
Todd's increased it once. He's our permit holder. He has increased it once in the past. We had to get a letter from Jerry Friesen, which we used as a landfill engineer. We also have to get a letter from the FAA for the Redmond Airport stating they're not seeing an increase in bird activity or bird strikes.
Oh, cause it draws in.
Yeah, and then the
Okay.
engineer letter is basically stating that we're still in compliance with our leachate and then it's up to him whether he wants to increase that or not.
And I'd like to throw a plug in for the landfill and helping producers, because that does keep the cost of butchering down. Prior to us taking that, what did we start 6 years ago, 8 years ago? They were go ahead.
Started what?
Taking the leftovers from the animals,
Oh,
maybe 10.
yeah, it's been
So
a while.
prior to that, they were having to drive it to Tacoma, and it was making the cost of butchering much, much higher. And the cost for the ranchers to do that. So I think that, it's important not that we can't do more, but
Yeah,
that is also already something that we're doing and it's a lot of work for Jackie to go through that whole process and understand that. That's concerning to me that we're taking so much from Redmond and putting ourselves in jeopardy. I would almost be interested in putting them at a limit
Yeah,
and
they,
then letting them figure it out, and then we don't need to be the ones that go to Deschutes County, let them be the ones that say. It's not our job to manage their things over there. I think we just give them X amount. And once they hit their limit, then they need to find somewhere else to put it.
yeah, when Darling was still a option before the fire, we agreed to take half of the butcher waste, so it kept some of the cost down for the region, but Darling had that fire a year or two ago. We did call, Aaron called for me, and they have not started reconstruction. They don't know when they will, so they said if they started tomorrow, it'd still be at least a year, so it's gonna be a while before they're up and running also.
Yeah, I think we should definitely have a conversation with them, and whatever you think is the right limit, to put a limit on that.
Yeah, I just need to put a call into Todd at DEQ and I'll do that this week.
Yeah, a couple of things you said, Jackie, I think in a perfect world, we don't necessarily need to, know if it's a livestock producer. So there's a couple ways to go about this. Let me back up. In Wallowa County, they only allow free carcass disposal at their landfill or waived cost for the producer if they are in an area of known wolf activity. And they've been doing that for about 8 years now. So if the residence is within an area of known wolf activity, they can bring their carcasses and bone piles in for free. The county pays the landfill in Wallowa County $25 a day, year round. And they have figured that covers their cost of dealing with the carcasses, and then then it's no charge to the producers who are trying to bring it in. And I can connect you with Susan Roberts. She's a county commissioner at Wallowa County. That's who I spoke to about this. I also wonder, if we can serve all the folks who are in Crook County who have dead stock, even if they are not in an area of known wolf activity, are those producers, or backyard farms or whatever they are they taking their carcasses and dumping them out in the forest, or are they taking them to the landfill anyway? I don't know. anytime that we can reduce the number of carcasses that are in proximity to livestock operations, including public land grazing and all that, we're gonna reduce our conflict with wolves. So I think there could be value in, making it more widely available. Andy and I were talking yesterday about hunting waste also, right? Can we get Oregon Hunters Association to be a part of this as well?
Oregon Hunters Association has offered to pay for things in the past that help hunters reduce the risk of wolf interactions.
How does that work though, Andy? Cause you kill a deer, you gut him right there. I mean, you're not gonna pick up those guts. So how does that work?
I
mean,
think-
as far as that, I mean,
The guts
that's
can
just
stay.
realistic.
I think the guts stay where you clean your deer, but I've seen places where there are just piles of vertebra and
Oh,
heads.
yeah,
and
right up
all
on
the-
top of the
Yeah.
hill. They
So I think
back
it
right
might
up
be
there and
more
throw it out.
that kind of
The
hunter
head, the
waste,
hide.
The good thing about the soft guts and that is that the birds can clean it up like that. Anything that doesn't have a hide on it can get cleaned up by birds pretty fast. So that might not be as much of a concern.
Yeah,
don't
they're
know.
more
Yeah.
concerned with the concentration, those areas that are known dumps where people, there's one up high where people just.
Sure, they just back up the pickup and they throw it out. I get it, yeah.
They just throw it off along Johnson Creek.
Yeah.
Our place.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a convenient, it's where they can drive in and leave it, yeah, I get it.
So Jackie, what's the difference between the offal and the actual carcasses? Do you have a breakdown of the two separate?
The tonnages?
Yeah,
It's in here too for 2023.
So last year for butcher waste, we had 838 tons of butcher waste. And
Huh? 830, that is a lot of butcher waste.
yeah,
Wow.
our limit is 500. We had 800.
That is a lot. Oh, when you look
Dead
at it.
animals was 213.9 tons.
okay, so that
Our
number
limit on
you
that
gave us
is
was
2.
just the dead animals, not.
Yeah.
The first part.
Said one was 2 or 200.
Dead animal limit is 200.
Wow, I do agree with Seth, because like we have a new butcher shop coming on board here in town and stuff, so we are gonna have to start looking out for our own a little bit on that, and we don't wanna lose our permit totally, so I'm amazed that you have that much. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Super lot.
Cinder Butte and Redmond Smokehouse are our big ones for,
Well, sure, and I imagine during the fair, it's really bad.
yeah.
How much of that is from Redmond, would you say?
I would have to figure that out. I mean, I could, but I would have to figure that out.
What would they do if we limited them? What would they do then? They're not gonna drive along Johnson Creek and dump it out on Bracken's place, are they? What do you do?
What would Deschutes County do?
Well, or Redmond, you're saying you get a lot, I mean, what would they do if we say, okay, now we're only gonna take. So you got 838, so we're only gonna take 400 ton, what happens to them then? Where do they go?
They would have to press Deschutes County to accept butcher waste.
And if it didn't go to Deschutes County, where would it go?
Well, there's a rendering plant,
Tacoma?
um.
Is it Tacoma still?
There's no tallow works,
Tacoma's the one that burned down.
Oh, okay.
there's no tallow works anymore.
There is one on the east side. Forgive me, it was late and I
Yeah.
just came across it last night. There is one on the east side somewhere. I would have to look.
But
Not
used
to
to be.
interrupt, but Tim DeBoot has a question really quick. Or would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, not so much a question, historical information. So this whole issue originally started when the Redmond tallow plant closed unexpectedly. Extension, all of our local meat processors in Central Oregon, along with the Cattlemen's Association groups from Central Oregon, got together and explored numerous methodologies for dealing with the animal waste, dead carcasses at the time. And as described earlier, we covered everything from composting to incineration to collection points where people could bring, and then single transport, up into Washington. Ultimately, it was decided that burial was the easiest, cheapest, most efficient sort of methodology for dealing with it. Crook County at the time sort of accepted it as a Central Oregon region. I don't think at the time Deschutes landfill was able to accept animal waste, carcasses and trimmings. It is surprising our grocery stores, it's not just butcher places, it's grocery stores and everything else that have meat departments. All their trim is what ends up and is a part of this count, I suspect. At least it did at the time. So sitting here listening, I am kind of curious to the cost and capability of just expanding the permit to increase the increased tonnage and continue to have the landfill serve the region and the community this in service, which when you think about it, you think of those tons that are being buried. It is a significant amount and it affects all of our retail and commercial outlets, in addition to the issue that is being discussed on dead carcasses and the wolf issue.
Thank you, Tim. So, what do you think?
Well, it sounds like there's this couple different issues here.
Yeah,
You know, the amount of animal waste that's coming in from Crook County and surrounding counties is maybe one issue. And then, you know, my main goal for this discussion today is to figure out a way that we can waive the fees for producers who are trying to clean up their carcasses and bone piles to reduce wolf, you know, the risk of wolf conflict on their operations.
what if you could work with the wolf committee if you were a producer in a wolf area and get some type of a card that you
I was thinking about that.
showed at the landfill to then allow, because like the goat I took up last week, that shouldn't be, I shouldn't get a break on that. I mean, I'm just, you know, that's, to me, that's not the right person to help. The people out there in those areas, I think that does make a lot of sense. And so, and my guess is it's not a ton, it's probably much more than a ton, but not that many
Producers who
producers
are within that.
that are within that area. Would that be a logistical nightmare for you?
No, that would actually, a card system would be way more beneficial than us trying to put maps out there.
Yeah,
Cause everybody has to show their ID when they come in anyway,
yeah,
but you get a random operator in the scale house who's just filling in and they're trying to figure out where this person lives, if they fit in that category, it would take too long.
Yeah.
And realistically, you take like out of Salina, am I gonna bring an animal all the way in here? No, I'm gonna get fire the backhoe up and I'm gonna dig. I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna dig a hole.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not gonna waste 2 hours of employee time and all of
Right.
that, so. You are limited on where your area is, that's not to say that wolves aren't gonna come in and they're at the pumpkin patch in Terrebonne, so they're not obviously worried about us domestically, but. I kind of agree with you, Seth, about doing a card system.
Mhm.
And you know where we live, you give us a card, if we do that option. Then I think if Jackie, and then Jackie can just kind of, or whoever's in this can kind of keep track of, this is how many ton came in. We're not charging, and then we could get an idea of what we're talking, but again, I think it's gonna be limited, because right now they're in Polina, and I don't see Gary bringing one in. I mean, do you, Andy?
No,
I mean, he'll bury it, I'll bury it.
burial is an option for.
Burial's a great option.
Yeah, and I
think
mean,
if
I'll
you have
bury
the
it.
equipment
Yeah.
and your ground allows you to dig it deep
Yeah.
enough. And
The only problem with that though is like I had bulls fight, I had a bull puncture a lung and bleed out, a month ago. We couldn't dig him.
Mm.
We took him clear over in a really far corner where he wasn't around the GI or anybody. And what was odd about it is nobody even came and ate on it. So I don't know what the deal was there, but you do get a limitation with your grant, you know, what time of year and your thing there, but.
And as we go forward and we determine what the costs are, we can apply to Oregon Department of Agriculture for some money to
Sure, to
shift to
cover.
landfill, to
Yeah.
help cover costs, and,
Yeah,
I mean, if we know what that amount is, it's not that big a deal right now. I think Wallowa County does that, don't they?
yeah, that's how they,
Pay
they,
$25 a day.
yep, they request it from ODA in their grant cycle. I've already submitted the application for this year, but we can do that next year.
So would you guys want me to divide up by county, what we accept for
Yes,
butcher waste, so you
Yeah.
have those numbers, and then if you would like a cost attached, I can give you, cause on top of the disposal fees, and we turn around and pay DEQ a per pound fee on top of that, so it wouldn't even just be the 15,000 or whatever,
yeah,
could potentially be more, so.
We just need to figure it
Just
out,
get
but yeah.
those amounts and the county information for you.
that would be super. From what I've heard today, I would like to put some type of a limit on what you can bring from outside the county into the county on this stuff. So we're not putting our entire county in jeopardy of being able to get rid of their stuff.
Yeah, I would like to see all the figures put together and then we can look at see if we can be compliant with what we have. And possibly moving forward to get some more tonnage. And if we can't do that, then I think we will have to make a choice like to limit
Okay.
from some source.
Okay, I'll start with Todd at DEQ and see what we can do there for the limit.
But
Oh, Bill behind me. And so.
One thing that I would add, regarding the butcher waste is because I just give to, on Monday. But the guy, and I had Center Butte do it, so just because they're based out of Edmond, I don't know if you wanna have them say these are from Prineville, these are from Bend, these are from Edmond or
Yeah.
whatever, because I know that he killed 5, on Monday here in Crook County, Center Butte truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
I
they've
think
gotta
that's
support
why
our local
Jeff in the
butcher
past had
shops.
agreed to take half
Yeah.
of it, because
I
they
think
do
you guys need to
recognize
think
some
about the
comes
card
from
system,
Crook
cause you know who it is,
I like that idea.
and you know who's gonna use it, I mean.
and then we can keep track of that, and then we
Yeah.
don't need to pay
Yeah.
$25 a day, we can, we can just figure out what those costs are and. And then find a grant or find a way to pay back the
Yeah.
price.
For you to record, if we do the card system, can you
When I
record?
track it, yeah,
Quantity.
I just build an item in the software system and we can track it. that
I
way.
think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
We can keep in touch on that.
Do you know how many you would be looking at, how many cards,
I don't,
the residents?
I'd have to go through our list and,
No, I wouldn't recommend just issuing them to everybody.
Yeah.
I'd say, put out the
Talk to 'em.
word
Yeah.
to Jody or whoever's got the good email list and say, if you want, you're
if
in
you're
this area
interested,
and you need a card, this is a service you want to take advantage of.
yeah, I agree.
Cause right now, I think there's only been 3 confirmed deprivations in Crook County. So that's what we're looking at, is basically 3 carcasses, but again, I think 2 of them, I think were here, I mean, we would bury, that's what I'm saying, so.
Yeah,
But in turn, that said, Gary buried that cow, and Andy can testify to this, and the wolf was standing there, and they thought, okay. And then the next day they came back, they were doing calves, and the wolf was standing in the same place, and they thought, hey, maybe we better go over there and look. And the wolf had dug down into the carcass,
I think that's the challenge. I
and
mean,
then they had to rebury it, is what they had to do, so burying it isn't always gonna be, and I've had a badger. I had an old cow we buried, and I looked out in the hole, and he was living in the rib cage of her, and that was pretty.
gruesome.
Yeah, but anyway, so burying isn't always your solution, but it's a lot better than just leaving a lay out there.
Yeah. And I think like Andy said again, you know, it's when you have an area that's maybe been used for generations.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that becomes can become a rendezvous site for wolves
Oh, yeah.
and, you know, they're just dogs. That's kind of how I think of it. Like, is this something that my dogs are gonna wanna go pee on and roll in and chew on the
Oh,
bones,
yeah.
right?
And
And
happy.
yeah,
I think it's worth considering that wolves are expanding.
Oh, yes.
Bill brought up, you know, there's a lot of producers that live here, run cows, have a lease operation out east. move around. But then there's merit to burying bone piles in Mill Creek, which is outside of. Or there's merit to dealing with carcasses there as well. because we don't
Absolutely.
You don't want them to go there,
having
Yeah,
wolf interaction.
the best
you don't wanna
defense
bring
is a
them
good
in.
offense,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree with you,
So
Joe.
I wouldn't necessarily limit it to the area of non-wolf activity.
I was just looking at the map and thinking the same thing. It's actually
the
not
outskirts,
a great,
keep it out of the
No, cause
outskirts.
you're bringing them in, is what you're
Yeah.
doing.
yeah,
And the more they get brought in, they're apex killers. If Aaron, what is that guy's name? Aaron, the guy with the long hair?
uh-huh,
Yeah, anyway, like he says, and they're so smart, my thing is how long before they don't care about humans?
well, they're not gonna be real shy of people until lethal control is
No,
part of
no,
the picture,
no,
right? So
right,
that is a
yeah.
concern. We will probably be seeing them more.
Oh, yeah.
But, I think that's a great idea to put the word out through stock growers and through some different producers who are well connected, that if people are interested, having the option to have their fees waived at the landfill, they can see Andy and I or someone on the Wolf Committee, and we can have cards where we can communicate on that.
Maybe we could just start generating a list, figuring out how many people we're talking about.
Yeah,
Before,
And it's not like they're going away. And with no lethal control, it's not like the population's gonna plummet. It's not.
Right.
It's just gonna become more and more. They just avoided Crook County for whatever reason for a
well,
lot
they
of years.
passed through, which
yeah,
is interesting, but
But
now
now
they're,
they've decided to come,
Yeah.
and ODF&W has no idea how many are out there. I'm sorry,
they can't, they have to, Aaron's covering 16 counties.
yeah.
You know, it's crazy, yeah.
So we use both a bone pile and we're hauling to the landfill. The last landfill that we took, it was $30
For a cow.
Okay, that's good to know.
Righty, well, we started this, we gave Jackie a chore.
Can do,
Sorry, Jackie,
not at all.
piling the work on you. Okay,
Nope, we'll get it
so,
figured out.
I'm happy if anyone has questions after this, you can track me down and happy to chat.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you,
having me.
Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
All right,
Have a good rest of the meeting.
I will.
Thank you.
on
Go
to
get
the solid waste management plan. Jackie and
Thanks.
Kevin.
Okay.
So Kevin is here from JRMA and Associates. They are the firm that is doing our solid waste management plan update. We had a kickoff meeting at our facility with Andy and our crew, and he is here to make that presentation to you guys, so you know what he's gonna be working on for the county.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm gonna give you a brief overview of the solid waste management plan update process. Interrupt me as we go. I see it's a pretty informal gathering here, so fire away with questions. Let's go to, I'll have to go to the next slide. So the brief background on our firm, we're Portland-based, and we've done projects all across the United States. So we're experts in designing solid waste and recycling facilities. Done lots of studies. Some of the pictures up there are just facilities that we've done around the country. One thing I wanted to point out on our team is we have two people that are known to the county. Jerry Friesen, who's been doing landfill work for years, is on our team. And then Chris Bell from Camas, he's done financial work for the county. So we have folks that have a long history working with the county. Next slide. So the last plan was done in 2009. So imagine what's happened in the last 14, 15 years. Tremendous amount of change for all of us in our lives and what's gone on in the county. Your tonnages that have gone up, obviously the population has gone up a lot. We've got some programs that are sort of dated, so it's a good time to take a fresh look at what's going on. So that's sort of the main driver. Next slide. As typical with most of these plans, we start out sort of gathering data on what's going on. We're in that phase right now. We're trying to, get these sort of tonnage trends. I had not thought of carcasses until today. So there's lots of little trends going on with different materials that you handle at your landfill. The landfill itself doesn't handle a lot of tons, but it's all it's this long list of stuff, that makes the landfill more complicated. So we're kind of getting our arms around what's going on with that, projecting out what we think your future waste tons are gonna be. And then really the meat of this is to sort of dig in and see what you're doing today. Jackie and your team run a great program, but again, things have things have changed, population has gone up. You have a landfill that doesn't have, you know, a gas system that's compliant with the state requirements, so there's a lot of change that's gonna be coming. And with that, as we sort of figure out the improvements to make to the programs, there's costs, so we'll be putting together a capital improvement plan. Yeah, so.
When you say we don't have a system that, for the state gas system, didn't we do the studies and we weren't higher than the number, so we weren't required to do that?
At the moment, we are under the limits for that gas system, and actually yesterday was our quarterly testing, and there's something about the month of March, but we passed on the first time, so that was good. But our next quarterly report, something about the barometric pressure usually around that time, we don't do so well, but it's just a matter of time before it's gonna go in. It's just when it happens.
But we're still
For right now.
within,
Right now, you're good.
So that's one of the reasons why Jerry's on the team, is that we gotta sort of look out at the future ton and see, at some point, this is gonna be, something that's gonna happen at the landfill. Next slide. So the other parts of this study that are unique is, you've got this very, very long rate sheet. So I know it drives the landfill staff crazy. It's so many different rates to manage. So Chris Bell and her team is gonna be looking at the rates. So they're doing a cost of service study to see if the rates are covering the costs, or there are ways to combine categories. Maybe there's some new rates that we don't have, so that's gonna be a big part of the plan. We'll be engaging, folks on the plan, and what we're looking at of this meeting today is really a start of that. Jackie's working with the city of Pineville. They have a solid waste advisory committee that we're hoping to use as sort of a vehicle to get feedback on the plan as we go through, so we'll have several scheduled meetings, and then we'll be, adding information on the plan update on your website. We expect to have the plan done by the fall. That's the current target. We'll try to get it done as soon as we can, but you hit summertime and it's kind of hard to plan back in summer, everybody's busy schedules, so. Next slide. So this is just sort of an example of, or sample of some of the items that are gonna get discussed. Again, the carcass item was not something that's on the list, but as we dig into it, it's things, your recycling programs. A couple of years ago, the state, there was a Recycling Modernization Act passed, that's gonna be funded by other parties, and so there will be improvements in your recycling drop-off programs and maybe some other recycling activities that's driven by the state. We'll be looking at what those are. I mentioned the landfill gas issue. There are just simply improvements at the landfill. It's, as the public comes in there, they've got drop-off areas for recyclables, drop-off areas for tires and appliances. There's a public area where you drop your loads. Any of those that we can think of ways to make them more efficient, safer, expand the capacity, we'll be looking at that. So this is just some samples. There'll be many more items that we come up with. So that's it, brief presentation. If you have any initial thoughts on items you'd like us to discuss in the plan, or something that's been bugging you that you want to ask our expert here, Jackie, I'll do the best I can, but she's your expert. So thank you for your time.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie, you got anything to weigh in, or?
Nope, so far so good. Kevin and his team have been great and very patient with me. They're being shorthanded and getting information, but I think we're making some headway.
Yeah, good progress. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
And you do need to get a life, because I think I sent you that email at 9 o'clock and you responded, so I'm gonna cut you off at a certain time, okay?
Hey, Sarah?
Good morning, Sarah Beeler, Crook County Library. I'm here for a couple of reasons today. The first is we would like to ask permission to apply for the Oregon Department of Human Services Resilience Hubs and Networks grant. And the reason we would like to apply for a grant is for a backup generator for the Crook County Library. Brody has been helping us come up with a list of specs, and we are in the process of doing that now. I've got until the end of April to actually apply.
Let me see, you don't have, I make a motion to, to grant the request to ODHS Resilient Hub and Network Grant for the library backup generator for Sarah to issue, to go through the grant process. I don't know if that's the best motion, but
So I had a couple of questions. Before we go out on this grant, I'd like to see us do a real comprehensive study on what that cost will be. Because there's a lot more things involved to a generator than just the generator. It's a switching gear, it's how much load you wanna do. It's a lot of work that also has to be done within the library. And we wanna make sure that we, have enough money to be able to do the project rather than just part of it and then realize that, wow, we still need about 50% more money.
No, and that is a valid point. It's a really interesting grant and it's for the resiliency of our different counties throughout the state. They have many other options and they include things like wiring, and they even have 40-foot Connex containers filled with emergency supplies that are worth about $100,000 a piece. So I was told in the webinar I went to yesterday that as many groups as want to apply should go ahead and apply and not just worry about, joining forces with a group, because the more applications out there, the more likely we are to get a grant. But it does cover extra things like wiring and so forth. So to have a complete application, we will factor in those other items as well and talk to, get a bid from an electrician and all the other parts as well.
So this is just the preliminary phase, is more like a blanket, just to be able to apply for the grant then, and then we come back with the cost that we're going to ask for.
Yeah, we can do that. I am interested, but I do want to put a plug out for all of the other county departments that might be involved with a group space for people to come to or providing emergency response. This grant has $10 million. $8 million is available for the county at this level, and I have the paperwork if anybody's interested, because there's a lot in there. I was encouraged to apply for a backup generator, so that's what I would like to do for the Crook County Library, and we will factor in those other costs as well, because we don't want to get stuck with a $20,000, $50,000 bill after we have our generator and not be able to do it.
Yeah,
Is it something that you need today? Or can this be
I
on
can come
next
back
week?
after, I have until April 30th to actually apply, and I can come back with an actual cost.
What's the harm in applying? We're not agreeing to anything. We would then have to, if I'm wrong, Sarah, correct me, but if we do get the grant, we can say we don't want it.
yeah, well,
I mean, I
we
just
do
think,
that,
why not?
accept it, so.
Why not put it out there, and then we can do the research in between, and if it doesn't pencil out, we're not, I don't think we're tied to anything.
Right, yeah, you can do that. But you don't wanna be declining grants. I mean, that's the quickest way to not get another grant. So you wanna be committed to moving forward with the grant, accepting the grant should you be awarded it. I believe the question, that Commissioner Barney raises is one that, we've talked about in terms of it being a full funded grant, which is why you got Brody involved with figuring out what all the elements are to ultimately make it a plug and play. And it's not you got the generator and you need another 50K to ultimately finish the project. And that's what we're trying to avoid with, the application. And so this would be the authorization, and wasn't looking for a motion today, as we've talked about before in the work sessions, not to take action, to go ahead and get educated on it. We can bring it back to you on the consent agenda next time, fill in some additional details that we'll be making the request for. All of the full cost of this thing, or if it requires a match, which is the thing that, the grant application process approval, needs from you, is identifying what that match might be, if it's 10%, 20%, whatever that number might be.
That sounds good.
That's how I'd like to proceed.
Okay, I rescind my motion and now you have homework, Sarah.
That's fine, we need to do it anyway.
Not saying no.
Yeah.
Just,
No, I agree with what you're saying. I totally agree with what you're saying, Brian. I was kind of on Seth's page that you accept it, but I do agree with what you're saying, makes total sense to me, so, yeah, we're on a good path.
We'll move forward and, I'll get the numbers so we aren't shocked or surprised after we get the grant for all of the other things that might be involved.
Okay.
Which could be considerable, I agree.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. Looks like I'm number
You're
4.
next.
You're next again.
Tomorrow night, the Crook County Cultural Coalition at the Broughton Room of the library is handing out the recipients of their grant cycle. And the Crook County Library will be receiving a $2,000 check tomorrow for the Glenn Miller Orchestra. It'll be our last grant that we've received for this performance. It's coming up on the 16th, and this is actually one to accept. So we would like to put that forth for your consideration.
But are we putting that on consent agenda? Is that where that goes? Okay.
Great.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Have tickets to watch that.
Good. They're sold out. I have a secret stash of about 5 tickets if anybody really needs one.
Now I might talk to you about that. What about, Casey, you're up.
I'm up on this first.
The
The
Fair Board
Fair
applicant.
Board
Okay, so
consideration.
on the 26th, the Fair Board conducted interviews and they would like to present Casey Kaiser for your consideration as for the open Fair Board position.
Was he the only person that applied?
Zuann Neal. did-
Applied, but then she rescinded,
yeah,
didn't she?
Then
Okay.
she backed out of the interview.
They just don't know how much fun it is,
It
Casey.
is a lot,
There you
a lot
go.
of work.
This board there.
Okay,
It's great.
so does this just go on consent agenda again? I'm learning, I'm getting there.
All right,
So much shit.
now we're gonna talk about forklifts.
Okay, so we are in the market to replace our 1979 case forklift. We can no longer source parts for it, they just don't make them anymore. And so we are having difficulty keeping it on the road. So we are out in the market looking for a used forklift. Between 40 and 60,000, and there are 3 that we've identified in California. That I'm gonna run down and not run down, but travel down to look for, or look at, in about a week and a half. So I would just ask, for authorization if we, in case we do find something that we can negotiate, a deal while we're down there looking at it, and then, try to close it when we get back there.
Sounds good to me.
So it's a JCB 2 case. Backhoes, they're all terrain, between 6,000 and 8,000 pound capacity. All the things that we need, summer, winter, getting stuck out there in the mud. It's, that happens, unless Commissioner Barney wants to donate his, we're,
I think you're getting a newer one than mine. Better just
Okay.
keep looking.
Anyway, I'll just put that out.
And so it says here it's a time sensitive,
Well, just
so-
because I'm traveling.
so do we need to do something today, or is this something
I
that
think
can,
that would
what,
be up to
how
you.
does that work?
Well, I think you're fine, frankly, to, just by consensus, have him go, because he's not gonna be, he's gonna have to bring it back for final action when
Okay,
he's found it, just making
Okay.
sure that he's not making a trip
I'm
with,
not buying a box of rocks, that's
Yeah.
really trying to make
and,
sure.
and did you look into your transportation costs to get it here?
So, correct, we talked to SMAP, and it just depends on if they're gonna,
Go to
we've got something going
Riverside,
south, if they're gonna deadhead back,
Take
so
them back home.
I'll work with Scott, he's usually pretty generous with what
Okay.
he does to us.
If you get a good enough deal, you can bring a couple of them back.
Well, it's money.
When you get down there though, I've been to Riverside, there is a lot of stuff for sale, and you do get a little,
Well,
you do kind of stray off the path.
a lot of their equipment doesn't meet their current
Yes,
emissions, and
and
so they're
that's a
selling it
benefit,
off.
yeah. We have a Peterbilt truck that I got a smoking deal on, and it's totally on a diesel thing. I've got quite a few out there from California. It's we're very fortunate that we can, go there and use those opportunities.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
no
so
decision.
no decision, I guess, Casey.
Okay, Randy?
Thanks, Casey.
Morning, everyone. I'm here today to recommend an appointment to our abatement of dangerous building code Board of Appeals. We had a vacancy due to the terms expiration. We would like to recommend Dave Gaggermeyer, so this building code of appeals, I think I discussed that, we just had another one a month ago, but Susie wasn't here. This is if any building or equipment within the county is found to be unsafe, dangerous, something like that, home catches on fire, they call us out to determine structural, electrical assessment, to determine if it's safe for folks to move back in. If we deem something unsafe to be occupied due to sanitation, faulty construction, anything like that, there's a notice and order that we must issue, and then they have a right to appeal to the appeals board within 20 days from the date of the official notice. So what these folks do is that if they choose to appeal, these are folks of the community area that have construction experience to determine if our basis was right in determining it was unsafe. So Dave's been on the board for about 25 years. He's just got 30 years of construction experience. And so we'd like to reappoint him to that position. And then the other discussion too is that in the abatement of dangerous building code of appeals, it requires 3 primary members to hear the appeal. But now they also want 2 alternate members in the event one of these other folks have a conflict. So we were in discussion with Sarah and Eric about it, because that's a new change. We're just adding 2 alternates in the events. One of the primary guys currently is Marshall Becks, Eldon Sperling of Western Design, and Dave Gaggenmeyer who's reappointed. And then we would go out for 2 more alternate members. So I don't know if you guys have any questions on that.
I don't, no.
No.
Sounds good to me.
Go for it.
Good.
You know, Dave, he's a good guy.
Thanks for
Thank you, Randy.
keeping this in mind. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
All right, now on to budget committee. Do we do budget committee first or compensation committee?
Let's start with I guess
Budget's
they,
first on the
they
list.
both are under the same header.
Yeah.
And it's really more about the process that you want. It's not about making any appointments here. It's, talking about the process you want to go through. You've got, more applicants for the open positions than you do positions. So what process might you like to go through to make, a decision? You've seen we've distributed to you a few weeks ago, the applications that were received. And, right now there isn't an established process that, you've used. Typically, you've had just enough folks to get them in the seats and just made those appointments. So with that said, do you want to do interviews of the individuals? Do you have, motion, go through a process where you make a motion to appoint 3 people to the compensation committee and see if there's a second and go that way and have a discussion and end up with, a decision on the 3 appointments? Do you want to go through a process where you're making them recommend or making a motion for an individual, get a second, appoint them, just go down the list that way? Really what's your preferences? I guess what we're trying to get to in terms of getting these 2 key committees filled here timely.
I have a question. You have one candidate who has applied for both committees?
Yeah.
And how's that handled? Do we accept someone for both committees or do we not? I guess that's part, because then that puts the compensation committee short if we, let's say we potentially put him on budget and then we don't have a candidate
Yeah,
for
my understanding is
compensation.
there's no prohibition against an individual serving on more than one committee, and
Okay.
if there were a conflict, they could announce their conflict, but in this particular case, I don't foresee a conflict.
When, if you look at his thing, he was actually on the Deschutes County Budget Committee and the Compensation Committee
Okay.
there.
I just,
At the
that was
same,
just.
at the same time, so.
Yeah, that was just a question, because otherwise it puts you down on, if that was the way it was, it would put you down on who you had as
Right.
candidates.
Well, I mean, I think we could start maybe with the Budget Committee and just, I mean, I think that. I guess I'll just make a motion to do Joel Hoff.
Well,
Ron-
hold on.
Wait a minute, we're talking about the, how to do it.
Yeah,
How
it's,
to do-
it's the how to do it,
Yeah,
right?
not
That's,
who. Yeah,
right.
Vote right now, but so I see some value in some of these, maybe having a conversation with our finance department. And just going through our process and, you know, seeing if their qualifications, see if they understand, you know, budgeting and things possibly would be the first step.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't see.
and have Christina come back with some recommendations. I really like Brian's idea there.
And compensation wise, you know, one of the statute requirements for the compensation committee is that they are knowledgeable in compensation. So would you want to do the same thing, having those individuals talk with the HR staff?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is one of the applicants is a county employee,
Right.
and that seems a little tricky to me. I don't know. I think it's probably best to have people outside the organization.
Yeah, there's no
Nothing
requirement
against-
to be, right.
Nothing against that person. I'm not trying to say that they're good, bad, or indifferent. I just think we need to, you know.
Yeah, my
If-
recollection is there what, there's 3 positions there and there's 4 applicants,
Yeah.
right?
For the compensation, if we jump real quick back to budget, we are only filling 2 spots on that seat. There's still one seat
Okay.
available on there that stays until the end of this year.
Who is that?
Steve
Forrest?
Markel,
Markel.
Yeah.
his term ends at the end of this year. And that's for budget. Compensation is completely wide open for the 3.
Yeah.
So we will need to fill that whole entire board.
Yeah, and one of the things going on for the budget committee, you know, those are 3-year terms. It would be nice to get those staggered, so you're only dealing with one, you know, each year. The compensation committee, those have been annual appointments. Looking at the statute just now, there's no requirement that they be annual appointments. I would encourage you to, you know, go to a 3-year term and go ahead and, you know, with this process, appoint one to a 1-year term, one to a 2-year term, and one to a 3-year term. And then in the future, they just, you know, churn one at a time as opposed to 100%
The whole-
potential turnover.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I
Get
totally
some
agree with that.
continuity.
And then you have some, you have some stability there. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
And
Okay.
some ongoing education that they have and understanding.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, that particular committee requires, you know, I mean, it's in the statute that, you know, they have this knowledge and experience with, you know, personnel matters. The budget committee does not have, you know, those types of requirements. But, you know, certainly I think, you know, then having a financial background, but, you know, a lot of it is finance, but a lot of it is, you know, too, what are you spending your money on? And is that consistent with, you know, what is being proposed, you know, in the budget, and that they, you know, are in alignment with that as well, you know, giving you citizen feedback into that process.
I totally agree, like you're saying, one talk to finance and one talk to HR. I think those are both good approaches. Do we need to do action on that?
No, we can go ahead and do that and then bring that back to you, based on that feedback. You know, you can then, I think, you know, the suggestion I would have, you know, is as far as the rest of the process. So what happens after the interviews? And, you know, if there's a ranking or, you know, just a check meets qualifications or, you know, that type of thing, you know, what is it you're looking for from them? You know, are they knowledgeable, not knowledgeable? And, you know, highest experience, lowest experience, I mean, something, you know, objective that comes back to you, and then from there. I mean, it's your appointment, it's not a staff appointment, so, you know, based on that information, you know, do you want to just end up forming it into a motion, any one of you, to make, a recommendation? Do you want, I've seen it done in the past and other, and we get into this conversation later in terms of the board roles and responsibilities. A responsibility oftentimes in many cases is the chair will take those committees, get all that together and then bring them back to the full board for their approval. So, that's one other way to do it. Be any one of you making the motion, to do it. You can do it again individually. You can go through the interview process, come up with a slate like, it's been done in, say, the library. Filling that when you had about 8 applicants for, 3 or 4, seats. And that was a full slate of interviews and, process of where you discussed until you ultimately came upon the 3 that you wanted to appoint. In this case, we have just one more applicant, or is it 2 more applicants than positions?
On compensation, there's only one additional.
One additional, then on budget, there's 4 or 5 for 2 seats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You make the motion, it's your turn.
Well, yeah, I put it, are we,
I don't think we need a motion. I think
Yeah.
what we're just,
I'm just looking for
So
direction.
that,
Yeah.
so I totally agree with the finance and the HR, and then bring it back. I'd like to see a ranking of how they feel. Obviously, they've got, I think in your ranking, your knowledge is gonna be in there, because if you're not knowledgeable, you're gonna get ranked lower. So I feel that basically their opinions are really important, and then we look at their opinion and go from there. And then if they, do you think they need to do interviews, don't you think? I mean, because,
well, I think they will probably be doing it, and I think that if we want to do an interview, that we should be able to.
oh,
that
yeah,
interview.
oh, yeah,
But we'll see what the rankings are and.
yeah, I think
things
go
that can
from there.
lead to.
Yeah. But I think as far as knowledgeable, that's really kind of inclusive in your ranking.
Seth, you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's very good.
all right, so we'll plan on doing that and then come to the 27th work session.
Okay.
With, what we've got. Okay.
all right, airport organization, operations.
Yeah, let's see, is Kelly here? Yeah, so we'll have Kelly go ahead and start on this and then I'll deal with the latter half of the presentation.
Morning. I'm just gonna talk for a minute on these first couple slides, just kind of give an overview of the airport, where we're at, what we're doing. And then we'll kind of take things from there. This has obviously in regards to the intergovernmental agreement.
You're fine. I'll put it on.
Doesn't like it, Kelly. I don't know why, but doesn't like it again.
Go on to the first, or actually the second slide, if you like. So, the airport as it exists now is 860 acres. I'll talk about that in a minute, but, there's approximately 90 acres that was sold back to the county that actually funds the airport right now. That was actually this, I guess it would be southeastern portion, which was unusable area for the airport. Most of the land within that 860 acres, obviously, most of it's used for runways and taxiways and such, but there's numerous acres, especially to the north, that is developable area, which is in the enterprise zone. It is zoned commercial and industrial, so we have plenty of opportunities on the north end. We also have the Crossland runway, 3315, which is a little unordinary for most airports these days, which is a big benefit for us. Most airports haven't been able to continue support for the cross-running runways, and they've been eliminated
we've been able to keep that, and actually we're going to be doing a rehabilitation project for that coming up in the next year. Utilities, on-site and expandable, mostly I'm talking about the north side, so we already have water, sewer, electricity, natural gas is close by, and also fiber is close by. So as things develop, we will be able to incorporate those items onto the facility, future growth.
What does fiber mean? What are you talking about?
Internet capability fast.
Oh, okay, I wasn't even thinking about that. Okay, I'm thinking fiber. All right, got it. Okay, why do you do that?
So features of the airport, or proximity to the data centers, which is obviously beneficial, Central Oregon population, we're the center, of Central Oregon. What's happening right now is because of our location and as busy as the other airports are, we're getting an influx of, tenants from Bend, Redmond, Sisters, Madras, all these other areas are coming to us. And the reason why, I guess, a lot of the aviation is growing is due to weather events. As everybody knows, the further east you go, the less weather you get. So obviously that's really beneficial for flying. Hence, a lot of the training, Hillsborough Aviation was here for a number of years. They're in Redmond now, but there's lots of aviation training going on in Central Oregon. And manufacturing. Lower land values, so we always seem to be a little bit under, Bend and Redmond, so that obviously is advantageous for people to come over and utilize our airport. The Crossland runway. I mentioned that earlier, that's a big benefit, as weather changes, when you're flying an aircraft, you want to land in the wind, it's the safest way. So like Bend, they get a lot of pretty fierce crosswinds, so it makes it pretty difficult to land. At our airport, we have an alternative, so you can always land into the wind, whatever it's doing. And then, of course, less activity. We don't have as much activity at our airport as like Redmond, which is a commercial airport, so there's lots of bigger aircraft and conflicting traffic. Bend has become really, really busy. And actually they're adding a aircraft control tower in the next probably 2 years. So that changes the complete dynamic of that airport. And I think as that develops, we're gonna even see more of an influx because there's a lot of people who don't like that complexity in their flying. So we're gonna see all of that. So recent activity, so this last fall, we signed an FBO, fixed base operator, which basically takes care of the fuel, and maintenance, and most of the maintenance items, et cetera, on the airfield. Previous to that, I've been doing all those items for the past 10+ years. So we actually have somebody that's there in professional operation that's taking care of those items. We've updated our policies, lease agreements, and lease terms. That was a big, time-consuming, big move for us. So that's out of the way. We have designed $5 million runway rehabilitation. Actually, we're through the design. We're working on the construction portion of that. The construction, you'll probably see in probably next month, the intent to award on that project. And that construction will start next fall. Let's see, capitalize the airport. So I mentioned earlier the 80 acres that was sold for 2.5 million. So that capitalizes the airport, and that kind of sets us up for these larger projects and for the next, at least 5 years, hopefully longer than that, to get us going and self-sustain. Just recently, private sector corporate hangar development. We have 2 fairly large, or really large hangars that are going in. So we've been able to put in water, sewer, and electrical to develop those. One concrete's poured. That's a 8,000 square foot hangar, and then we have a let's see, an 80 by 80 that's going next to that will start probably in the next few months. So that's some pretty big moves for us out there. And those, will bring in, those bigger hangars bring in bigger aircraft creates more activity, more fuel sales, which supports our FBO, which supports the airport. Let's see. Slide there, extending the utility infrastructure to facilitate, so, corporate hangar development, aviation industrial development. So we're looking this, if you're on the highway passing the airport, this is the look of the runway if you're actually landing the runway rather than just driving by. So to the right, is the area that's really going to develop in the next 5 to 10 years. As everybody knows, we have the Forest Service helibase that was put in about 4 years ago. And that kind of started the infrastructure for that side of the runway. And so we'll be able to extend on that in the future years. We already have some interest in some of that area. Oregon Department of Forestry has some interest. We've had BLM have some interest. We have a manufacturing interest. So there's already interest and discussions going on about developing that side of the airport. County key hangar construction, we're working on that. Hopefully we'll know in the next 30 to 60 days how we're going to proceed on that. So that's a 10-unit storage facility. That'll be a revenue producer for the airport. Mostly federally funded. So that's gonna be big for us. And of course, I mentioned earlier, the runway rehabilitation project, which is for our Prospect runway. Big project. The last time that was, I think it was paved in the 60s. It was a dirt runway that was paved in the 60s, was overlaid in the 70s. And then since then it's just been patched and bubble gum and duct tape to keep it together. So that'll be widened, new lighting, it'll make it really nice. And then from there going forward, we have some other projects lined up, but they're in further years out. We'll be resurfacing this runway, that is our main runway, what you're looking at here. And then we'll get into a new master plan and looking forward for future development and how that looks. We'll know in the next couple of years how that development's gonna look on the north side of the airport. So I think that takes care of what I was gonna talk about. Andy, if you want.
Sure. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, any questions related to, what's going on at the airport and, the activity? I mean, it's seen significant change over the last several years.
I do have a question on this Crosswood runway. Are they grinding it up, the existing runway, or are they gonna overlay over it?
It will be grinded up, it'll be, pulled
Laid
down.
down
I
in
mean,
space.
they're completely pulling it up
Okay,
and regrading.
okay. But will they lay that grind down as their base, or they'll
No,
bring it out of their
No,
base?
so the grindings will be kept. Right now, we don't know what we're gonna do. We're keeping the grindings. We don't know what we're gonna use for them.
And they're
So
good.
there's gonna be stockpile for roads and whatever else. we
Yeah,
need.
they'll love those. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, historical stuff and, stuff that Brian may know a lot more about this. But, prior to September of 2011, the county operated this airport through an airport commission. And number of challenges that were ultimately arising during that time, and they partnered with the city, put together this IGA to jointly manage and operate the Crook County Prineville Airport. In that agreement, the city was responsible for operating and managing the airport. This included hiring and firing all the employees. So it was not just Kelly. You had people that were doing fueling and the other services that were, necessary out there, the plowing and maintenance, et cetera. They did all the accounting, all the budgeting, all the financial reporting, et cetera. The county's role was really significantly reduced in that respect. With respect to that operation, the county and city shared equally in the city airport fund shortfalls. They did a full cost, accounting and so forth for this. At that time, full disclosure, I was a financial advisor to the city and helped them set up all the different things that they're ultimately doing, today. In that process, right before the agreement came, the county loan money from its road fund to retire a debt. That was about $1.3 million. That was for a bunch of, construction work that was out at the airport. That $1.3 million has been repaid to the road fund by the general fund. General fund in itself has not been paid back. It could choose to keep the money there or at some point potentially get the money back. There's been 5 amendments to the original agreement. Each of those has been extending the term without any real change to the nature of the agreement. The IGA itself expired December 31st of 23. There's discussion about extending it, and discussion was, no, let's just get the new one put together and get it finalized and continue to address it through the new agreement. The kind of what and it helped lead to the change in terms of going to where this agreement is drafted is back in July of 21, the Governmental Accounting Standard Board enacted GASB Statement 87, which required the owner, the county, to ultimately do all the accounting for all the capitalizing all the leases and so forth. So you had all these different leases that are out there, all the ground leases, all the T-hanger leases, et cetera. Those all ultimately had to be accounted for and placed on the county's books, which, a lot of effort. The city didn't want to be doing that, and we ended up with, and the city really couldn't do it because they didn't own the airport. So that accounting came back in. So you had finance reporting going on both the city and at the county. To try and simplify that, that kind of led to, the county has to, the city doesn't. So we looked at, that as we evolved into this business plan conversation. It's involved in, like I say, increase the activity of the county into the airport, bringing me back in, to help you with this stuff. All these policies and so forth, we've done that in a couple of different airports, Ben being the one that had the most experience with from start to finish. We're able to do that. And again, all of that was more county involvement with Kelly's assistance, less of the city involvement in terms of the city council, the staff, et cetera. And part of that business plan was to buy the county buying $2.5 million worth of that land for county purposes for later use. And that money going into the airport fund to ultimately capitalize it with the goal stated by both the county and the city commission city council was to go ahead and we wanted to get this to be a self-sustaining operation. And that's what, the $2.5 million helped to facilitate. Big part of the business plan, and it happened quicker than I certainly expected, was, the ability to get an FBO out there, which has a positive impact on the cash and the operating requirements because we're no longer paying, Kelly to be, pumping gas. We've got an FBO that's doing that, FBO that's doing, a bunch of the services at a much lesser cost to us than, what it would have cost, doing it otherwise. And those folks are in that business. That's their, business. We're, in a lot of respects, a developer, not necessarily, trying to run an aircraft maintenance operation, flight school and all those things, but, we're definitely more the developer role, and that's really where the business plan is set up to go. So we've reduced, through this process, reduced the city staffing to the airport manager, and he's reporting to 2 entities. He's reporting back to, the city, and then, certainly reporting back to you, but I think he's spending more time probably now reporting to this body than he has been reporting to the city council. Okay, well, this wouldn't be a complete presentation for you if I didn't run some numbers by you and throw a spreadsheet up. But the self-sustaining part, what we did, we had Lori Hooper Antrim and Christina Heron and Kelly. They worked through, got the forecast all put together based on what we currently have in place. And then, I reviewed this, with Kelly and with Christina, just to make sure we weren't carrying the items forward that that don't need to be, such as fuel costs, things like that, that were in the current year, number. So you can see a significant reduction in your materials and services, from 766 down to 304. And that's just, that cost of that whole FBO operation, I should say the cost of Kelly and his team operating the fueling and the associated costs with that. There's some other engineering type things that were also part of that for, one-time type, costs. But this lays out everything, with our existing leases, we have a adjustment to market rate rent in fiscal 26. Right now, the leases are clearly below the most recent appraisal. So that appraisal, gets updated here. I believe it's next year. That will, we believe, be at least at that number. And we've used the current estimate rather than what the forecast number is. And then growing that by the CPI. We've got the FBO factored into this, this forecast as well. The green highlighted numbers, are the personnel related costs for the city. This includes a little bit of IT costs that are being allocated to Kelly for himself as well as the airport. So it's a, it's a full cost thing. We have in the forecast the cost sharing at 50% in fiscal 25, so it's equal share between the city and the county. And then that cost is going up by 3% a year, looking at a CPI type of adjustment together with moving over a 3-year period to get to a full costing the county paying the city 100%. And so that's, just in rough numbers, it's 3% plus 35,000 per year. And so the intent is to get to fully self-sustaining, no participation from the city. The county itself is using existing capitalization in the fund to cover those, shortfalls in the short years, for the first 3 years. And after that, there'd be no contributions really coming from the city, and the objective would be that the county's not coming up with any money from any other source. The county would be fully self-sufficient. And the reality is we fully project that there's going to be, as we've already witnessed this year, where you have hangar sales, where you have existing hangar leases, those transferring to new owners, new leases, and the rent coming off of those is around 250% greater than the rent they're paying today. And then the ground rent for new hangars that we would certainly, as Kelly's shown you here, new leases for, new hangar leases for that as well. The objective was to get to where we were break even or, positive cash flow. You can see out in year 4, fiscal 28. That number is, a negative 19,000 that's highlighted. That again, in looking at a long-term projection, based on, an operation, bringing in, $1 million a year, that's a manageable size, annual efficiencies, and, mention the other stuff that we expect to happen. We think that 19,000, is going to be taken care of. And, it would be cash flow positive by, by that time. And with any luck with that, then, as a developer, you have the potential, if you wanted to at any time, to be looking at, do we want to pay the general fund back? And you would have that authority to do that, within the FAA rules, which are very stringent in terms of using those types of dollars for airport purposes. But you have got that money from the county that's gone into that. We've got a tracking of that, and that is a reimbursable type of cost. Okay. Next slide, please. So the IGA itself, starts out with a joint goal to have the airport be self-sustaining. And I should say, I think you guys have all seen this IGA previously. We just, updated it just a bit, and I've highlighted those sections in the IGA that's in your packet, where we've made some adjustments. 1B, this replaces the entire previous IGA. It sets forth the payment amount from the county to the city for airport manager and technology. And the way this is drafted is it's a known number. And so we can plan on that number rather than historically it's been a number that's vacillated back and forth. And we start with a budget number, but through the year, there's this additional item, this additional item. This is just to go ahead and give some certainty to the city and to the county in terms of what this is for our planning purposes and for us to manage, that accordingly, as opposed to it just being a constant shift. And when you got 2 different government bodies, you're only one vote away from not having alignment. So this puts this all into the county's hands to manage the airport moving forward. The term of this is 3 years, 3 months, so it's basically to get to, into fiscal year 27. We fully expect the county to be looking at going to a biennial budget that would match what the city is doing, which matches what the state is doing. And this would be at the end of that biennial budget cycle, the ability to revisit this at that point in time. Is everything online? Do we want to just keep doing this? And do we want to, at any time when Kelly leaves, that opportunity exists, you want to just bring the staff, in here versus, having it be a city position. And, the one other element here is on item 6, which settles up the city's airport fund in fiscal 24. So they've continued to have some, costs and so forth that they've, incurred through, I believe it's March is when they should be pretty much done with anything and everything they had to do under their current agreement. In the discussion that we had the other day with Commissioner Barney, City Manager Forster, Lori, Christina, Kelly, and myself, was they would settle that up. We'd know what that amount was, and we'd settle up in this fiscal year. And then that way we're all done with the prior IGA and we're moving forward exclusively with the current IGA.
How much, what are we looking, what amount is that?
I think that number was in the, mid, 5 figures, 50 or less, 50,000 or less to settle it all out.
Does that take into account when we were paying more earlier in the process?
Yeah.
For I'm talking years ago when we were feeding it a lot more and the city wasn't putting as much towards it.
No, we're not going back and dealing with any of whatever you guys made before. It's just purely on what is the IGA, have in place now. Whatever the county, and Christina provided me with a full schedule of what the county has provided to the airport over these years. If the county wants to go back and pursue any of those dollars through the airport fund, it has that ability to do that. But yeah, I don't think it would be fruitful to try and go back and rehash arguments or disagreements or situations that I believe, at least in our conversations, everything I've understood is that it's kind of been settled. It's this IGA, this is the amounts, how we're going with the current IGA.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is the city always seems to kind of nickel and dime us, and then we kind of just agree to pay things, and that's the only thing I don't, I mean, I know, Brian, you have that same opinion, at least you have in the past, and
Yeah, I would say on the airport, that's not the case. The city is under no obligation whatsoever to be partnering with you on the airport. And they've thrown hundreds of thousands of dollars into this to help make it work. And it's been an economic driver for them and something that's helped them with, I know, some of the development that they've done up on the hill in terms of meeting their needs for the data centers and the ability to provide that infrastructure and so forth. So I think it's been a good collaboration by both parties. And them staying in this deal and continuing to be a part of this is, I think, the good governance collaboration that you'd want to have. And I think, trying to get back into the other stuff would, I think, create more issues than it would, help.
yeah, no, all I'm saying is it'd be nice to just move forward and not have to pay them. That's all my point is, but.
Well, then if you didn't want to pay them, what you probably want to do, because they've got the staffing that you're using.
Yeah.
And if you weren't paying them, they'd be paying 100% of Kelly's salary, a few $100,000. And I don't think that's something from the conversations we had the other day that they're going to be interested in doing. So then we'd be bringing that full cost in here. And, we wouldn't be able to bring Kelly over here because there's a statute that requires if you bring employee from a PERS employer into your organization, we have to provide the PERS. We'd be into the whole thing of providing PERS, countywide to do that. So that would not be an angle that we want to pursue at all.
And we want to retain Kelly as the airport. And when we were doing the elevation, and there were some figures that were run, and the city had actually invested more money in the airport that the county had, they would feed it here and feed it there and, you know, I mean, it looks because we didn't have any participation in what they were feeding, you know, or paying for a lot of times, but they actually are into the airport more than we should.
Sure. Yeah, I just thought it'd be a good conversation because I know they have quite a few more dollars coming in from the franchise and some other things. It might be an opportunity. We're always looking for ways to.
And I think
get
those are,
dollars.
yeah, I think
But
those
yeah,
are
it's
separate conversations,
Well,
yeah.
It's all money.
Yeah, I mean, this,
Yeah.
This is a
If you,
success
Brian, if you
story.
think that they put their amount in, that's fine.
I mean, this is a success story.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, there's,
Everybody's agreed and it's moving forward and
yeah,
Yeah, there's a whole nother level of communication now than there was in past years. In past years, the city, me, myself, we'd work for a year, then we'd have a discussion. And obviously, some of the bills were surprising, right? Because you didn't know what we were really doing. Now, I tried to create some updates, but sometimes at the end of the year, those bills are surprising. But I think everybody's communicating and everybody's on the same page.
yeah, this will work great moving forward.
Yeah, no, I think the agreement is solid. I just want to make sure we're not putting money towards something, but if, again, you've been more involved and if you think it's worth paying that 50,000 to the city, you know.
I want to ask on the IGA, you have three things highlighted. Obviously, one is the amount of money, then you have the 3 years, 3 months. And is there any significance to those being highlighted or anything you want to comment on? Is that-
sure, yeah, just to highlight, those are the changes from the
The
last
original.
version
Okay, I
that you
figured
saw.
that, but I just wanted to
Yeah, just
confirm.
want to
Okay.
call it to your attention in terms of those are changes and these are the dates that are being, the amounts that are being proposed. And then section 6, I think, is also highlighted that, speaks again to settling up that.
Yeah, the prorating and that, yeah.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, 6A.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our objective was to get a number hopefully from Lori sooner rather than later, so we could have an actual dollar amount. If we can't get an actual, it'll be a number that says not to exceed, type of number that we can put into the agreement so that it's,
So you would add that there at 6A
yeah,
if you can't get the number.
right.
Okay,
Got it.
okay.
And the intent here is for the county to approve this at your next meeting. Okay, well, that 112 is, I think, a pretty good number. Lori, needed to go back in and update her numbers related to Kelly's full, cost together with the IT numbers, and hoping that she has that today, tomorrow. And whatever one half of that number is what we're gonna start with, and the rest of it would, stay the same. The other piece would be that 6A, not to exceed. But you guys approving this, next meeting, with your meeting on the 20th, we'll be going to the city council work session on the 26th, I believe it is. Then it will be on their next meeting after that for them to approve it the first part of April.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Andy, can you remind me why we have the effective date of April 1st instead of January 1?
That was, I believe, the date that the city was most interested in, yeah, rather than going backwards.
Use the gap, but that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, if you wanted to talk with Jared and make sure. Okay,
All right. Just roles and responsibilities.
How long do you think this would take? Break?
yeah, if you want to take a break?
Like a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been here an hour
I
and
was
a half.
thinking I
It's a
could
good
read the
time.
executive, but thank you, Brian. Thank you. That's the critical. I did get a thing that I have to change my password in 5 days. Sarah, guess what? You have a job.
That's a scary situation,
That after you have a day right for a meeting,
or the morning of a meeting.
yeah, it's stressing out, I couldn't get it, sometimes it never takes.
Yeah. Well, actually Chelsea's coming Friday to help me, so guess what she gets to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Board rolls.
Okay, in your packet is a red line version of the roles and responsibilities of county commissioners, all members. This is based on the conversations during the goal setting session, I think last, March 1st. So the red line is the discussion of those changes to be made with that, you know, put in place also, you know, all these acronyms that you have for the various different governing bodies or committees.
I
Spell
actually will
those.
know what they are now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And they keep expanding. So this lays that out. What isn't here, you know, one is this, you know, cover everything that you want to have covered as it relates to what all board members are doing or not. The other, you know, element here that we need to get a handle on is who is on which of these committees, what are their terms, what are the meeting frequencies, all of those things, so that, you know, between Brianna and, you know, Sarah, they've got a handle on this to help you be at the, you know, the meetings when, you know, you expect to be at the meetings, and also making sure that we're getting feedback or agendas and all the other stuff in terms of what actually happens, so that all of you are aware of what's going on with, you know, within these different, you know, boards and commissions, and how does that impact the county, and, you know, what's the county's messaging or position, you know, with respect to each of those particular agencies. We've, you know, within these committees, we have, you know, staff that are also working on various initiatives that have other acronyms, but they're, you know, part of the same thing, and they have grants associated with those, and whether or not a elected should be involved with those, not involved with those. But we're trying to make sure we've got to put together a complete list of all of those as well, so we can report back on the progress of those activities. But, you know, starting with you is, you know, we've had a chance to maybe look at this, you know, is there anything that's missing in here that we need to identify? And then as far as who's part of each of these committees, do we want to try and identify that now? Is that something we want to just have as a homework assignment, that each of you can go ahead and plug in what you do know? And, you know, with that, you know, what is the meeting dates, you know, those types of things. And then we can take that information and then, you know, have another discussion, I think, because this may be an ongoing, you know, process here for, you know, several meetings
Yeah,
to
yeah,
just
that's, I
work
think,
through that. And
looking at, you know, which ones are on right now, what we would prefer to be on. I know Susie's showed interest in some of the ones that I'm on.
I do have one question. What is approve a communications plan? It's on the very bottom. What does that mean?
I think that's, you know, these are, in terms of, you know, the big bullet is the community engagement. These would be examples of policies, et cetera, that you would ultimately be approving. So Sarah's put together a communications draft, I think just a very
Initial.
initial draft. That's been brought to you. The idea would be whatever that plan is, you're ultimately at the end of the day signing off on that plan.
So that's something that's in our to-do list,
Yeah.
and you're gonna be sending that out to us?
So they had experienced the work session previously, and then I sent it to you after our goal setting on March 1st, because you were interested in
Okay.
looking at that.
Okay.
But I can resend it and then
Would
resend
you
that
resend
video.
it? Okay,
We
thank
should
you, because
resend
I
it to all
probably
of us.
lost it, yeah. I just wondered, because that was added in there and I wasn't familiar with it, but I agree with Seth about that we need to go through these and figure out these committees. I do agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, you know, I mean, anything else in here or things that are missing, you know, these would be.
Thank you,
you know,
Sarah.
If you want to change the scope of those responsibilities, this would be, where you would do that.
Well, like one of the problems that I have is, so tomorrow I'm going to the Central Oregon Hospital Council, which is a very, interest of mine, but that also interferes with OFRC. It won't interfere next month because the meeting will be in Prineville, but tomorrow it's in Madras, so I have driving time. So one of the things that I went in and asked Brian how I do that, one of the things he said that maybe I could have Tim DeBoot fill in on the times that I had a conflict. That's just an idea Brian had, seemed like a good idea to me. I haven't approached him or anything. I've already told them that I'm not gonna be there. I've answered the questions that they asked of me, but, so that's something we need to, down the road, if it becomes, excuse me, becomes more conflicting, then I may have to make a change. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, putting
Balancing it all
together,
out.
where everybody is, understanding when their meeting dates are, so you're not joining two groups that have meetings literally on the same day. What is that, what is the expectation on those various boards?
I wonder, could we have Brianna go through when all of these meetings are, these committee meetings are, and then have it kind of stated out, and then we know, and then we go from there, don't you think
Yeah,
that'd be
I
a
think that
good
would be a good first
explanation? And
step.
then, like I say, I've got a conflict immediately right here, and then we can kind of, what do you think, Brian?
No, it's a good idea. Some of these keep changing, but
Yeah,
what we have
do get
basically for now
Yeah.
would be great.
yeah, no, but if we could do that, that would be great. And I've already decided like that on that COIC, I've just gotta go into Redmond because I can't stay here and have the alarm go off and all of that, so I've already decided
I'm
I
not gonna
go.
be here all,
I don't
every
care.
night.
I know, but I'm not gonna be there, so I know now that that is I am present meeting from now on.
And, but I think that's good because there's a whole lot of people in there that can give you the opportunity to meet and,
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it isn't good, it just I had something before, so I tried to go on Zoom, which became tasking.
I think it might be helpful too, while Brianna's doing this, to find out who else is on these boards. Is it elected officials? Is it the county officials? Is it, is it other elected? Is it, department heads, within the organization, just so you have a little bit of context of.
Yeah, that would be very good.
That,
Very good.
what is their role, purpose, is there, you have to prioritize like everybody else, where do you want to spend your time? And is it you, or is it somebody that, should be, from the organization, or is it one that you just pass on?
Okay, yeah, no, if we could have her do that, that would be really helpful, and then bring back this discussion, and then we can kind of actually, oh, dang it, actually know what we're doing. Sorry, if I
Okay.
had a computer assistant, I'd be really good.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Yes. Yeah, that was all members. Then. Yeah, the red line version of the role of county judge board chair, that looks like it's all been deleted. That's not the case. There's another page that is, what is the role of the county board chair? And Seth had drafted this up, as county judge and the things that he was seeing. And this is, in conversation again for all three of you now with the change. How would you see that, those roles, responsibilities? Is that something that is the role of the chair? Is that something, does some of those responsibilities be made part of the body for the commissioners as a whole? I think that's one that has not had, we've had no discussion on this. It's been in the packet several times, but have never got to this. So.
Okay,
I think this gonna take a little time to go over. And I
Yeah.
think that we have this and then we have an outline and so, yeah. We need to just study it a little
I
bit.
think we need homework.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's just, keep this in front
I
of you.
read all this last night, but I agree, we need homework, and we need to, like you say, know when the meetings are, and just kind of just be totally, immerse ourselves in this whole.
Okay, yeah, so what we'll do, continue to get the information for all of you, then have that conversation, and we'll just keep at this until we get, get through all of it, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Administrator report, the only thing I've got is, at your last meeting, you wanted to expedite this recruiting of a county manager. I've asked Christina and Amy to, put together, something for you, bring it to you today, so go ahead and have them, speak.
Good. So we understand that you'd like to move forward as of yesterday, on last Friday. So, what we want to do is make sure we put together a reasonable plan, a reasonable timeline to responsibly recruit for that position, to make sure that we are finding the candidate that really suits the position in the Gulf of the county. So we put together what we feel is a reasonable timeline going forward. I think our first step is to decide how we proceed with the recruiters that we'd like to evaluate. We've reached out to several other counties to see if they have any recommendations, as well as a couple other organizations. And we've come back with, I think, 4 or 5 here in the Northwest that came recommended, or, we have used them before. So we can start by evaluating those recruiting companies if they would like. We need to decide whether we want to move forward with a request for interest, or to send out an RFI, or if we want to go a little deeper with an RFP. What are your thoughts there? I think that's our starting point.
And so I'm probably the ones that you've identified, we probably should share amongst everyone and look at them.
Yeah.
On the right track, and then, kind of give some, each of us give some direction maybe.
Sure. So those are the responses that we got, from the organizations. Not a whole lot of comments received, no real rousing red best. We could use that one. So. But that's what we have. If we want to expand beyond the Northwest, that is, something that we can examine. But these are the ones that have been identified kind of in our region.
What are we talking money wise? Just general rough, I'm not holding you to it, but kind of an idea.
Maybe what's your experience?
It's gonna be around 20% of the beginning compensation, so you're gonna be looking at somewhere in the 35 to 40K range plus potentially expenses.
Yeah, I know, Andy, you don't think it's professional, but I really do think we need to put something out sooner than later to get something going, but.
Mike,
Go
I'm
Yeah.
gonna push back just a little
Yeah,
bit. Seth.
for sure.
I think, while yes, we could potentially get in front of some candidates that might be qualified by putting it on LinkedIn or Indeed, the best candidate that we're gonna find is the one that's not looking for us. And those people are not on LinkedIn, and they're not on Indeed looking for positions. They're actively at their organization doing a mega job. And those are the candidates that we want to identify, and that's where the recruiting firms are really going to be able to drive that forward.
Can we shorten this anyway, Christina, so we're not in August?
I mean, ideally, we're gonna be able to push it through a little bit faster. We didn't want to get your hopes up and then feel like we're running behind the whole time. I think our communication to the recruiting firm is, we're very motivated. We'd like to move this along as quickly as we responsibly can. But also we want to take the time to find the proper candidate as well. We don't want to rush it and end up with a candidate that isn't going to best serve the needs of the county.
Okay, I think that
Yeah, no,
you
that's.
know your
respect
job.
Your opinion, so.
Yeah, you know your job,
And I don't know one from the other here.
No.
I've heard of
Yeah, it
our
doesn't.
company quite often.
Yeah.
But, I'm fine with leaving it to the folks that know,
I think
instead of making a new plan here.
part of the process will be meeting with these firms so that you can ask the questions that you might have about what their procedures are, how they're gonna find these people, what their processes look like. And that might help give you a better idea of what these organizations are gonna bring to the table.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, we're gonna look at them,
I do agree that you guys are the experts, so we better let the experts figure this out for us.
The only thing I would say, is there any of them that they've used with rural communities? You know what I'm saying? I mean, all these communities here look like they aren't a really great fit for Crook County. Maybe Tillamook.
Yeah,
Seems like that's the
Amy
closest.
sent a communication to all of the Oregon counties, and those are the responses that we received. I've reached out to a couple by phone without much response. So we haven't really gotten a lot of feedback, unfortunately.
Sure.
So, but these seem
That's my only concern, looking at the list, is
Yeah.
there's not,
and that's fair.
it's pretty,
These seem like the most prominent, readily used ones in the county.
And agreed on Tillamook, but then it says up here Deschutes had challenges with them, so there you go.
And mixed reviews.
So
maybe that's a positive thing.
I'm not sure, but you know what I'm saying, so.
And it's not always the recruiter that's the problem, just so you know, I mean, you know,
No,
you got a recruiting firm that's been in business for 30 years and, Brockman's like, if you were to look on, he's definitely got the largest market share and, you know, so you're gonna have occasions where you run into issues and so forth. I think, you know, back to, you know, Christina was saying, initial first, directive is, an RFI or RFP. The RFP, you have to drop the RFP, put it all out, deadlines and all that type of business. An RFI can be done very quickly, get their interest. We can schedule interviews right away, do them Zoom. They can, can have a conversation, decide, we don't want to, we don't want to talk to them anymore. We're done. Yes, we want to talk with them further. And, I think back to the decision you made on, the attorney for representing us, on the Department of Justice, situation. That was John doing a little bit of due diligence, getting a couple of qualified firms in front of you, you having, some Zoom interviews, you making a decision, it went pretty quickly. That, to me, is probably, understand you guys want to move sooner, and I'm not here to impede that at all. But at the same time, I don't want this to fail, right? And if you don't do it right, and you don't do it well, it's gonna fail, and then you'll be right back at it again. These things, you just don't wanna be in that culture of becoming a place that has this churn. You have a lot of homework yourself to do in terms of what kind of candidate are you even searching for? My guess is you got three different people, you got three different, ideas. And, how do you work through all that so you can lay that out so that the recruiter actually knows what they're searching for? Because it would make no sense for them to pull in something like this and bring it to you. And you're like, well, this isn't really what we're seeking at all. So the recruiter's kind of like, the analogy would say be going car shopping, wouldn't do them any good to come back with a Lexus when you're actually wanting a Chevy. Right, so there's a whole lot of homework on your end that, the recruiter will help you work through to, put all that, together. You got the job description, that's a key piece of it. But then off of that, there's a whole list of things, and you go through any of these recruiting brochures for executive level talent, they're got a whole list of the ideal candidate is. And it just boom, 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 a list of things that you're looking for, and you'll need to agree to what those are for that person to have any chance of bringing you the candidate that you're hoping to have in place. Make sense?
No,
Yeah, no, and it does, and we have previously done that to a pretty good extent. If we move forward, then a lot of that work is done if we can agree to it, but if we agree to it once, we can't agree to it again, then I'm gonna say it's gonna take months to get through that, as it took 9 months to get there in the first place, so. That's gonna be up to us, we gotta bear that, so we've got to make decisions and stick with them.
okay. And I do agree with your comment, Christina, my daughter. Headhunters approached her. She was very happily in her job. Headhunters approached her. And that's how she got on the job that she has and was successful at it. So there is quite frankly, yeah, they're employed, they know about them, they know their talents, so you do make a very valid point there.
So
Okay,
would you
so-
want to move forward with the RFI piece where they can get, for example, with these
Yes,
firms,
that's the
go ahead and
quick.
get them scheduled for?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then in the meantime, we'll go back and go through and, yes, thank you, Christine and Amy.
Okay,
Do we need a action at all? That's just, okay.
All right, so I had I think a pretty good in-depth meeting with the governor yesterday. We talked about fair funding that didn't work out. She's still extremely passionate about moving that, but I mean, at least it was on her radar and she was positive
Good.
about it.
Good.
Had a conversation about some of our DEQ issues. And hopefully that will be fruitful. We'll see if there's any more movement on that. So. I think what else, DEQ was brought up, I thought it was really interesting, it's not surprising, but virtually every county in the east. Has issues with DEQ similar to we do, where they have, even in areas where they have fatalities, they don't fix things and they don't upgrade them, and. So I brought a couple of those up, so did some other counties of examples, but yeah, it was a quick meeting, it was 30 minutes, but I think we got a lot of work done, and we'll continue to do that quarterly. So continue to kind of follow up if she's able to work on some of the things we brought up. And anybody else?
Now it's my turn?
Sure.
Okay, so I did get a call from DEQ yesterday, and they, on the water contamination out on La Monta, they want to send Oregon Health Authority. And Greg was going to talk to me, and he kind of said, well, we need the commissioner's blessing, and I wanted to kind of say, why? You already know, I've reached out to you, I kind of thought, but anyway, long story short, Oregon Health Authority wants to come, they want to have a meeting. They want to have a meeting first with just us, and then they want to have a meeting with the people, the homeowners, and then they want to go out because they still feel that the manganese is not causing the health issues. They feel that there's a hidden element, and they want to go to the different homes and test water and try to find that out. I also had a meeting yesterday with Nicole, the last name, you guys probably know. Was Senator Wyden's aide. They are going to be doing a town meeting on March 25th at 2 o'clock at the library. I told them one of the things they're gonna be encountering is the water contamination. So Nicole was going back and she was going to see if maybe he wanted to do like a meeting before or something so that he could keep his town hall agenda, but he could include this in. The other thing I was told is that federal government likes to come in late. So if we have a project and we need frosting on the cake, that's when we need to ask for the federal government's help. And in the water contamination issue, she said if you could come up with solutions to it, that would be what he would be more prone to be interested in versus let the agencies do their job. But then as far as the federal government.
Water
they'd like-
treatment area,
yes,
or
they'd like
some kind of digging deeper wells or whatever,
Yes.
whatever the end game is to fix the problem. that we
Yes,
found.
but they were more interested in solutions rather than the cause. And my statement, I said, we have DEQ, we have DEGOMI, we have Oregon Health Authority, and someone needs to stand up and start working and helping these people. We need to quit passing the buck up there and let's just get this done. So that's basically kind of that's my biggest thing is the water situation.
Suzie, if I could follow up with that, you mentioned that DQ was mentioning desire the
In fact,
county board to,
they kind of wanted to get together, and actually I got an email from him while we've been sitting here. And so let me see if I can find it and see if that has anything to do with what we
is he looking like for a communication
I'm
from
not
the
sure.
board to him to endorse the idea of the Oregon Health Authority coming in and doing this? Is that?
Okay, let me read to you what he just wrote. Commissioner, in discussing our upcoming meeting to talk about public health and groundwater, Oregon Health Authority suggested that Katie Plum be involved, Crook County Public Health Director. Do you know Katie, and are you comfortable reaching out to seek her involvement, at least for the public meeting? OHA can also request for participation, but they prefer that the request is made locally, which is why I'm reaching out to you. Please let me know. I'll have an invitation sent later to a planning meeting where agencies can answer any questions you have about the purpose of the meeting. So I'll respond back. So that's the latest. And then Nicole just wrote me, let's see what she wrote. Thank you for, okay. Due to anticipated votes and delays in DC next week, our town hall schedule is adjusting slightly. And it seems we will have to put our Crook County Town Hall on a later date. So that takes care of that problem.
Scratch that one.
We can scratch that one, and then we have another little thing. Oh, she also sent me, here are some of the state handouts that were given to residents last year when Dagami and OHA held a meeting for them. So long story short, then I have a couple, like an OHA manganese handout and water resources thing. So that is that's the breaking news.
So Susan, did they indicate they wanted Katie to participate not only in the town hall, but also the individual meetings with the individual?
I am
members?
gonna just forward this to you.
Okay.
And you can study it and you can figure it out, but I'm thinking that they want her to. Oh, gosh, now you're expecting double talent from me. You guys are demanding. Okay, so you guys can look at that. But basically, it's for her involvement, at least for the public meetings. So I'm not sure. I'd like to see her stay with the whole process, I think. You know, if they are going to the homes. Interestingly enough, yesterday, so Gus Abbas has been out there drilling test wells on the veneer. He hit water at 4 feet. Tondi, I want to say her last name's Bird. I'm not sure about the last name, but it's Tondi Bird. Anyway, she went home last night, turned on the bathtub, and I have a video of it. It's like muddy, the muddiest water you've ever seen. She filled the bathtub 4 times, it never cleared. And she went out to her hot tub and evidently the water was brown and she must have been filling it, is all I can think of. And it ate the finish off the hot tub. You know, hot tubs are shiny. Where the water wasn't, it's shiny. Where it is, it's eaten off. So whatever is happening with the wells obviously is churning something up. But again, if OHA feels that the causative factor is not identified as manganese, they need to get up here and find out what it is. And it seems to me if it's eating finish off, it's not manganese, there's some acidic thing in there. But that's just me thinking.
Yeah.
And I can send you guys all, I put it in I sent it to Greg this morning, I sent the video to Nicole, and I sent it to Gavin. I wanted them to see.
Yeah, send that over to me too. I mean,
I'll send it to both of you. You turn that video on and it's pretty like, wow, yeah.
What was the feedback from the governor on the DEQ stuff?
She just said that, you know, they need to be more involved and, I mean, she wasn't gonna go just skewer the department.
Yeah, I'm not looking to skewer, but I mean, you know, tip the scales to, you know, direct somebody to.
No,
Do
she
something.
said that there needs, and I think that's why she got the call, is what I think happened, is that her chief of staff was there, she was there, I made good eye contact with both of them when I was, and they could tell that it was something that was a priority.
Okay.
And so I think that again, that's why we are getting additional. Because I think they thought that they were being handled. That was the conversation. They said, well, OHA's on top of this, and I said, well, they were. And
Well,
then,
we hadn't heard anything at
yeah,
all.
well, they
and then-
had made promises, but then they never got
They
back
never
to
did,
anybody.
no, everybody's
And
going to
so,
the next guy.
Again, I think that's where we are seeing a lot more. But I mean, I think it's important to keep them
Oh, absolutely.
engaged on what's happening.
Yeah, gotta be right on top of them. for Katie, she's got a full plate already. This is
Well,
gonna be something
yeah,
on
so I
top
was-
of
I
that,
was
so
gonna-
we're gonna have to deal with that.
And I think we need to be extremely careful when we're part of this, that they understand that she has very little control of the situation, and all we can really do is pass it up to the next level. Because I wanna be really careful that she doesn't become the punching bag on this.
No,
Well,
and these agencies should be doing
I know, Susie, but that's what they did during COVID to her.
Yeah.
And so we need to be extremely careful that we don't let the state push, I don't even know why she needs to be there. I mean, I think she can be a collection for information to send up. But I don't think she needs to be in those meetings getting yelled at by people or any of that, because she has absolutely no control on any of it except for to send information to the next level. And I think it's really important that we are very clear with them, because I think they're really good at shifting the blame to local people that don't have control. If I learned anything during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we need to be super careful that we don't put her in a position where she's in jeopardy because of their uninterest in being accountable.
So what do you want me to do as far as this request?
I would,
I'm gonna be with her tomorrow because we're driving to Madras tomorrow. I mean, would you like me to? Maybe I'll tell her and then I'll show her this email and say, Katie, what are your thoughts? And then we'll come back on.
okay, but yeah, but I would also say to the person, kind of what we just talked about there. We don't have the ability to change anything, so
No, it's their
we're happy
job.
for her to share information with you and support you. But this is your operation, and I think that's really important.
Okay.
And I think what I'm hearing is, we really need to understand exactly what the DEQ is bringing in OHA, what is OHA gonna do, when are they gonna do it?
Yeah, what their ask is.
And what their ask is
We don't know.
yeah,
According to him, within 2 weeks, OHA is gonna be here and go out to every one of these homeowners and take water samples. And what I'm really hoping DEQ is able to do is go across the street and take water samples at Knife River, which has been one of the things that hasn't been able to be done. And so that was and they were going to just have a little meeting and then go to the homes, take the water, say, this is Brian's water, Seth's water, Susie, and then try to identify this. They're saying, what I don't understand, and my disconnect is, if you read about manganese, there's a normal level, and when it gets up really high, which is what these people are experiencing, it causes neurological problems. But OHA is saying none of these, so you have aborted calves, you have dead chicks, you have, I get the thing about the hives with the children. But what I don't understand is they're saying it's another element, and so my understanding of his conversation is that they are coming to identify the element that they think is causing this. Yet people that have taken their calves for an autopsy, the veterinarian has said it was the manganese. So there's kind of
There may be a couple of things. going
there's
on.
like an imbalance there, because why then, if you look it up, it says it's a neurological problem. And yet you're saying, no, it doesn't cause it. Well, how does Wikipedia and you come in here? I'm not quite figuring this out.
Why would you have mud coming out of a well?
I sent you the video too. Actually, if I said, could you put it up on there? Or you can?
Not at this exact moment unless I log into my email, and I would rather not do that on the screen.
No, that's fine.
The mud might make some sense because
They're agitating.
they are, and they're agitating in the working of the, removal of the gravels and things, and they're in the water table, so they're, I can see maybe that.
So if not for Knife River's activities,
I mean, if
Probably
it's
wouldn't be
spreading
mud.
in the water table and, it takes a while for that to spread and they've been doing it a while, so very.
yeah, I think we need to be pretty careful about making claims and accusations
Oh,
without,
yeah.
again, because I think we're
Yeah,
now
no,
dipping our toe into
The other,
saying why that's happening. We don't have the capacity to research it. That's why the
No.
state needs to come in
yes.
and make a decision on this. And
The other thing that was said by Greg is they are concerned that there is an additive going into this water. And that possibly whatever this additive is what's causing these reactions. Again, like I say, it's like kind of just step up to the plate and figure this out. That's what you guys are, that's what your job's supposed to be. Either that or just get rid of the agencies and leave it
Yeah,
up to
why-
us.
why-
Why are we paying for them?
Well-
That was my thing to Nicole, is why are we even paying for these agencies if they won't man up and figure it out?
Well, it's so they can find developers all over the state, and that's kind of how I couch my argument, is that there's people all over the state getting fined for foot-sized standing water on the,
pavement, yeah.
but it's a foot size of a boot.
I know, it's a duck.
And so they're getting, hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines on that don't really change the environmental plight of the citizens of our county, and then something that is not being even investigated.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
very,
it
and
seems like it's a very skewed situation, so
okay.
hey, anything else?
Oh, Brian, you gotta talk.
Well, I haven't met with the governor and I haven't been fighting with water about it.
Okay, but we wanna hear what you're doing. What are you doing?
But I have attended quite a few team meetings, with various people, aviations, AOC on public safety and et cetera. I have, had meetings with city staff and, Kirby staff and discussing, and architects to discuss the additional parking lot expansion on Claypool and Second. I have approved like 8 change orders, various things. I reviewed the invoices that have come in, substantiated that they're correct. I have taken tours with IT and GIS and nobody else. I don't know who that was. Anyway, so I've been dedicating quite a lot of time to Justice Center.
So when are we moving that over to Andy's plate now that we're not gonna be as engaged with some of these projects?
As moving it all over to him. I would think that's like learning how to walk again.
Yeah.
We can certainly work together, but I think that I'm gonna follow through it until it's completed.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I just think we should have a discussion about that now that our roles are changing and that we're gonna be more.
We had a facilities
5,000
that he's left and.
foot level, and just a discussion I think we should have.
Which brings me to the thing, so we had 2 applicants that I read those things. I have not read the other 11. Where are we with our facilities?
We're waiting for feedback from all 3 of you,
Okay,
and we're continuing to recruit for the position. Ladies, do we have any?
do you have any
New
more
applicants?
besides the 11 that were on the second email?
We don't have any more applicants, but I do have interviews scheduled with the remaining applicants this coming Friday and Monday, so.
So you may push forward someone else.
And Christina and Brody have been doing follow-up interviews with some of the,
Okay.
they've had one so far.
Okay, because one of the things I was concerned about is one of your applicants seemed like he drifted a little bit, like he'd be somewhere for 1 to 2 years and then moved on, and we obviously are looking for retention. That was just one of my things in your primary ones. And I was gonna go back into those 11 and see if I had a revelation, but I'll get an answer back.
Will
to
you send me
you.
those again? I've been having.
I looked at
finding them. But, and so are we
I
getting
don't know
part of
if
those
I'll
interviews?
find a revelation, but I thought
We
there was,
had-
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
That's just a comment on my part, it's just that one guy just seemed like he's worked for really good firms, but not for very long.
Yeah, and just, process wise, we've sent this information to you guys, been a while, looking for feedback, been able to get some feedback. We're going through, the process that we've got internally, which is to have the HR staff do the initial screening, go through that initial interview to see if there's a good fit here for both sides of things to take up anybody else's time. What I have understood from the three of you is that you're interested in being involved with the panel. With three of you, we'd end up with three different panels. We've got folks that would be coming from the sheriff's office, and other areas, library, et cetera, that would be, department head level or, high level, folks that have some responsibility over, their particular areas, whether it's the justice center, the jail, the library, or the main facilities, the courthouse, and putting approximately, I think, two staff people with each of you as electeds that would go through the interview process, and then collecting all the, results of those interviews to see if there is, a front runner or, whatever. We've typically, in this, we may need to go into executive session to handle this, is we've brought all the parties that were involved in the interview together and have a discussion to see if can work through coming to a clear person that you'd want to, make the offer to. And then at that point, my role in that, probably take a lesser role just to make sure it's going right and it's, the right, type of person for the, to fill the job. And if it's not, I'd be giving you that feedback, to keep searching. But the intent here would be that collectively amongst all the people I just mentioned, you'd be coming to consensus on who your top pick is, much like we did with the CIO process.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, if you want to get feedback in terms of who's being interviewed, you're running out of runway. I mean, there's a process here, the communication's been out to you. It's on you guys to get back to us at this point.
Yeah, totally agree. I just was asking for that information.
And Brody's been doing a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brody's been doing great.
Yeah.
Feel comfortable that things are being taken care of.
Yeah, he's taking care of the day-to-day and all that type of stuff, and, the person that certainly needed, the person that would be able to, help Brian out with, things. Brody wouldn't have the time to do that, and, or the skill set that, we'd be looking for, and he'd readily admit to that as well. So, for now, with that approach that we've got with Brian, stepping up, it's much appreciated, so we can, deal with all the other things we've got.
Maybe you'd like to put in your resume for facilities director.
Yeah, there you go.
He's been asked about that several times. Get a pay increase, get a pay increase.
There you go, there you go.
All right. Anything else?
Okay.
Okay, we'll go into executive session under ORS 192-66028, consulting with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Representative, yes, sir.
So I also understand we're also going to be discussing something under 2F for review of documents that are in the public.
You've said it. You've said it, so I'm not gonna repeat it. Representatives and news media staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All members of the audience are asked to join. Representatives and news media specifically directed not to participate in deliberations during the executive session, except the state of the general subject of the session is previously announced. No decision being made in the executive session. In the executive session, return to the session, all the back in the room.